In this video, I'd like to take you through some ideas about how you might go about actually building a course in Canvas. Focus on ideas and approaches rather than the sort of mechanics of using Canvas, although some of that will come into the discussion and demonstrations as well. To do that, I'm going to start by looking at the Canvas methodology and making sure that there's a sort of clear understanding about how Canvas works in terms of the ideas about how you should approach course building. Then moving on to the college template, which uses and has a very linear approach to course building, and then moving into areas that are maybe more associated with the kind of courses that we build in creative industries that perhaps are more project-based and certainly often more non-linear in their approach. And we can look at project-based approaches and ones that are based around assessment tasks. In future videos, I plan to then kind of develop further ideas and possible solutions to working with non-linear project-based examples. The best way to start to understand and use Canvas is to get your head round the sort of methodology behind Canvas. And to do that, I'm going to take us in and have a look at the template that the college has put there and how that works. That will help us get to understand how Canvas works. Also, once you understand that, it then means that you're in a better position to be able to adapt and customize that template. So once you've been signed up to a course, you can jump into it and it will always take you to the home page, okay, which we'll discuss in a minute. What has been set up here are assignments, and in this case pages, and we can view all pages. So that's what's been set up there as a sort of dummy template. Now they've all been then organized via this thing called the modules, and within the modules, for example, these could be split up into learning chunks, assessment tasks, etc, etc, etc. In the case of the template, they've got a module which reflects that home page, and then a link to Canvas resources for students as a module, and then they've given you an example of a teaching and learning a learning and teaching module here. In this example, it is expected that you would work through this in a linear fashion, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute. So from the point of view of a student experiencing the environment, if we go into the student view, you'll see what they'll have as by default home. Don't worry too much about the announcements. The modules they'll be able to access, so they'll be able to see the modules that are in there. Okay, and then grades, that comes later on once you've got the thing set up, and then the others are sort of self-explanatory. Office being obviously a link to using Office 365, that links to the people themselves on the course, and then any Zoom links you might have. So when the students here, they could obviously go and do populate and see who the lecturers are. This takes them into any discussions or the initial discussions about the course. Course resources are set up there by default, and then the learning modules. So in the if you were to be using the template, then that's how you would set up, and that would jump you straight into where the modules are. And then the student would then go down to the first module and start working their way through. Now then, the thinking behind Canvas is, and the thinking about the way the modules work is that it's in a linear progression. So the students would complete one activity and move on to the next. So that's why you've got this next and previous sitting here. And they will work their way through each of the modules, and they'll work their way through the pages and the assessments that are in there. So if I jump back to the modules, you'll see that's what's happening. I'm going through module 1, presentation, into the group discussion, etc, etc, etc. Now this is fine. However, that works very well if you're structuring your course in a linear fashion, and that's the way you work. However, many of our students don't work in a linear way, and a lot of our courses aren't necessarily taught and work in a linear way. So what I'm going to do next is show you how you can start to customize this template and how you can then make it so you can approach your teaching and learning in a more holistic manner. So let's start having a little look at how you can adapt and work with that template for your own uses, and some of the problems with the modules, as well as some of the reasons for using modules. If we jump back to our dashboard, and this course was the first course that I set up, and you will see how I've started to adapt it, but also some of the kind of issues that I've uncovered as I've started to try and adapt it. So in the first instance, I've decided to keep the sort of template homepage and leave these in place. There's nothing to stop you removing them, which we can look at some point. However, I also then decided just to recreate some icons that reflected the course that I was putting together here. And this is a holistic delivery of a number of different units combined. And that is then reflected in how I went about thinking about the modules. So in here we've got the modules that existed with the template at the top here. Then I've got a project module, something that deals with the context for the course. So the project would have something like the brief, any discussions in there, and some activities associated with the brief. But to support the development of that brief, I've also then needed some tutorials for the students. So I've created a module for the tutorials for the students to work their way through, and a number of small tasks and challenges which you would clarify as a set assignment. So there's pages and assignments in here. And then in addition to that, there's a range of sort of theoretical ideas and things the students have to complete also as part of the unit. So there's research, etc, etc. And that's been put into another unit. Now, from the student's point of view, how they might navigate this information would work something like this. So again, if we go into back to the home page and into the student view, they could certainly start here, and they could then go and say, okay, the project is here, and this is where they have a look at the brief. And it's very often for us to have an overarching brief for the project. Now this is where the problem down here might start to occur in terms of navigating the course material, because this is going to jump, whether we like it or not, to whatever the next module is. which happens to be a group discussion, which may be a good idea. The student may want to go into that group discussion. You can see my students have been involved in that. But is that necessarily the way that we're going to work through this? Because then it may be that some of the other course content the students may need to get involved with before they can tackle the brief. So we have a problem here with that linear approach. So really, the student would then be encouraged to navigate via the module window, which, as you can see from the example I've created here, has its own potential problems because there's a lot of non-visual information for the student to try and get their head around. So in some ways that could be problematic. The modules have certain advantages. It's great for monitoring progress and gauging how the student has worked their way through information, etc., etc., etc. So you would need the modules to do that. But you can see that there are some problems with how you might navigate a more holistic and non-linear course. So next we'll have a little look at an example of how this could be overcome and how you could create a course to tackle that. So let's have a look at a course where we've removed the need for the student to navigate through the modules. So in this unit course, I've decided to give an example of using the template. Okay, again, easy enough to customize this, but I've gone with the template, but to show how that template can still be reasonably versatile and suit our needs should we wish to do so. So I'll just take you through how this works from the student view and then some ways in which I actually put this together. So in terms of navigating the information, your home page is this, and I've slotted into the existing home page three blocks of activities, 3 tasks, okay, working as a schedule. Okay, so the student could then access those as well as accessing the information down here. So for example, for the first assessment task, this jumps you straight into the assessment task with an introduction to what's being expected there. Okay, the actual assessment task, which you can link to. So that's the task that the student's being asked to complete, and that would link me back to that assessment task. Okay, I've also got learning resources on this page, links, etc., etc. So that's how that page works. In terms of navigation, the students can jump into pages and this will take them back to the home page, but they can also view all the pages that are available to them, as well as all of the assessments that are available to them. And you'll see there that the modular view has been hidden. So just to quickly repeat that, so it's effectively working the same as any website would really. Okay. You will lose a certain amount of functionality by removing the modules. Certainly in terms of being able to track progress through the course. So it needs careful thinking about how you're going to lay out and plan to use the your course. Now, in terms of how that's actually been put together and what you need to do to actually build it, you'll see that I have removed all of the modules. So there are no modules. So we're not going to get that issue of the forward and back because they're gone completely from there. So we're not using the modules at all. The moment the modules go in, you're going to get the forward and back buttons. And then what I've done is I've relied on building it from the pages, and all my navigation works from the pages. So I'm going to have to then edit the pages and add my content and add links to my content. So here I built 1, 2, 3 images, and each of those images has got a link that I can attach to it. And you'll see over here, it will give you the link. Okay, and to actually add a link, down here I can edit link, remove link. So if I remove link and then course link, and this particular first one's there. Okay, so you can see I'm adding my links to my front page. And down here I can do exactly the same. For example, on here I actually put a link straight back to this page, so the student never gets out of, is always accessing back to the learning materials on this front page, and then these links are already there and already set up. Okay, so I can save that. In the assignments, if I go into here, you'll see I've got the first one that I built, and again on here I put a link onto that. And again I can use the editor. That's got a link back, that image. Okay. And as I say, the editor will work as any web page design editor would work. I'm not going to go into details about that just now. I just want to give you a kind of general overview of thinking about how you would structure a course. And as I say, I will then add some more videos of some other ideas about how you could go about building, say, project-based courses, and some further thoughts and ideas about how we could go about that.